No, I'm Karen Brown.
Karen Brown, yes, okay, so yeah, you're...
Good evening. Go ahead and put your phones on silent if you would. And please, if you're out in the hall, come on in and have a seat. Every seat's a good seat.
Hey, it is time. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for being here with us. My name is Shelley Clark, and I'm president of the League of Women Voters here in Bay County, and we're so glad that we have so many folks out this evening to come and hear and meet and listen to the candidates that have presented themselves for public office here in Lynn Haven. We believe that this is a really important civic activity. It takes a lot, and we certainly appreciate everyone that is willing to put themselves out here as public candidates. It's a serious responsibility, and the League of Women Voters for 100 years has been committed to making sure that we empower voters by giving them information and encouraging them to participate. We do know that when people have information, they are much more likely to be interested and to participate and to feel that they are vested in the actions that their public officials take. And so we do want to make more, take more attention to us being connected to our elected officials, and this is one way that we can do it, is by you actually meeting them, hearing from them, and then hopefully once they are in office, we are holding them accountable and making sure that not only when they're asking for our votes, but also when they're in office, that we have good relationships with the people that are making decisions about our communities. So we are very happy to start our program this evening, as always, with our civic responsibility and duty of pledging allegiance to our flag. If you would join me, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. So we want to definitely thank our facility here this evening, Lynn Haven United Methodist Church. This lovely facility that we are so pleased was available for us to have an appropriate venue for this. So we certainly want to thank them and see that everyone is able to look around and see what a lovely jewel this is for the Lynn Haven community. We also want to remind everyone again to make sure that your phones are silenced and that you would respect our activities and minimize the movements of people that are attending. So with that, I will introduce you to our Voter Services Chair, Ms. Jamie Shepard, who is going to tell you about how we'll conduct our process this evening.
Thank you, ma'am. Good evening, all. Thank you so much for coming. This is such an important part of our democracy. We are so pleased that you are here for the Lynn Haven Candidates Forum, and we will have all three races available for you tonight. We'll begin with seat number 3 with George Hines Sr. Stacy Hutchins and Dane Messick are not here. Mr. Messick has gone out of town and Ms. Hutchins is sick. But we also have Mr. Warwick here, and we're very glad for them. Brian Dick and Brian Gray, the Brian team, will be here up next for seat number 4. Judy Tender has bronchitis, and she is not willing to share that with anyone. And then we'll close up with the mayor, Joe Brown and Jesse Nelson, your candidates for mayor. Ellen Fields has sent us a message, and we'll read her message. As a matter of fact, we'll read a message from both Judy Tender and from Dane Messick. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization. We're focused on empowering voters through education and engagement in the governance of their communities. Local elections truly matter. This forum is free and open to the public, and we encourage you to get out and vote no later than Election Day, Tuesday, April 20th. We have some sort of forum rules, if I can make this phone scroll up, which of course it won't do because I want it to do that, right? Just the way of the world. Oh, really? Come on, you. Oh, my goodness, you'd think I had never been to this rodeo before. But, well, here we go. Let me do this. If we can get it to scroll. All right. Candidates for elected office must appear in person, and alternates are not permitted. We did allow comments or a statement to be read on behalf of absent candidates. Reasonable accommodations have been made for those requiring assistance. This location was selected for its ability to safely accommodate a crowd during COVID with safety considerations. The candidates for each race are seated alphabetically and physically distanced from each other and the audience. Masks and social distancing may be required in the seating areas, but candidates and the panelists will not be required to wear masks while we are in place. No candidate signage is allowed on the stage, but campaign apparel, such as hats and t-shirts, are acceptable. The questions for each panel are equally distributed, with each candidate having an equal opportunity to answer an equal number of questions first, based on numbers. Show them one of those lovely orange numbers right there, drawn at random by each candidate this evening, and no questions have been shared with any candidates in advance. Each candidate answers all the questions. 90 seconds is allowed to answer each question and will be tracked by our timekeeper, Earl Henderson. If the candidate has answered the question and has time remaining, you may return to the previous answer to clarify a question or to rebut a previous comment within the 90-second time limit. No personal attacks on other candidates are allowed. No questions are taken from the audience, and we encourage you to allow this to be a civil dialogue. No catcalls, booting, or hollering, or whooping. No whooping allowed. How's that? Our media, we are so pleased to have our media representatives here. They are part of our democratic process. And without much further ado, we begin. Do any of you have questions for us in the audience? I think restrooms are out, clearly marked in the hallway. We'll have a break we'll start with candidates for seat 3. When we're finished with them, we'll shoo them off the stage and invite our candidates for seat 4 and clean the area before they begin. And then we'll finish up this evening with Mayor. Any questions? Be your last chance to ask. All right, wonderful.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start with the message that we received from Dane today. I was born and raised in Bay County. I have been a resident of Lynn Haven for the past 21 years. Blessed to be married to the love of my life for 53. We have 2 amazing children, 5 awesome grandchildren, and 2 fun-loving great-grandsons. I'm a graduate of Rutherford High School, attended Gulf Coast Community College on a baseball scholarship, signed with the Houston Astros organization, and later on was bought by the Kansas City Royals organization. Due to bursitis settling in on my throwing arm, I had to end my professional baseball career. I moved back to Panama City and entered into a 4-year apprentice program as a pipe fitter mechanic. I then hired on at Arizona Chemical Company and retired after 34 years. I served our country in the Florida National Guard for 32 years. During those years, I had training at Camp Blanding in Jacksonville, Florida, also over in the jungle of the Panama Canal. My unit was sent to Miami to help with the aftermath of Hurricane Andrew in 1992. When I decided to run for city commissioner of Lynn Haven, the slogan from the Florida National Guard came to mind, the Minuteman, which means to help people. And that is what I intend to do for the city of Lynn Haven. We need to bring integrity back into the city. For the past 8 years, our city council has failed to do enough for the residents of Lynn Haven. Sadly, they have made promises they cannot keep. I'm here to change all of that. I will not make promises I don't intend to keep. I'm here to work for the people, not for myself. And because of that, I have not taken money from many outside sources. That is not a promise, that is my word. I would appreciate your vote on April 20th. Together, let's bring back honesty, integrity, and leadership back to the city of Lynn Haven. God bless America, and God bless the city of Lynn Haven.
And we did not have time to get a message from Ms. Hutchins. She's probably sadly sick, but we all wish her well. Gentlemen, are you ready to proceed? Yeah. All right. We'll have alternating questions. We have 12 questions for each of you, and I'll read the the odd numbers, and Shuri Krim, our other panelist here on this panel, will read the opposite. So, who drew number 1? Q1. So Mr. Hines, you get to answer this question first, and then Mr. Warwick, you'll respond Q2 through 12 as, and if you need the question repeated, we're happy to do so. Mr. Hines, how does your work experience in the public and or private sector and your life experience qualify for you for this position?
There's one question. It's on. Everybody hear me?
Yeah, you're on.
That's one question I hate to hear about qualification, because being an American citizen, you're qualified for any job that's in America. Now, my qualification for this job is I did 21 and a half years in the military. I was with law enforcement for 4 years. I worked at the boot camp. I also went to school for law enforcement and got a degree in law enforcement and criminal justice. I went to school at Rutherford High School. I joined the military, as I said. I did 21 years in the military, which qualified me for any job in this nation. Now, as far as the Lynn Haven job, I've been in Lynn Haven since 1998 when I married a girl from Lynn Haven. We have 4 kids, and I've been to every city commission, not every, but most city commissions since that time. And I'm involved in Habitat for Humanity. I was president of Habitat for Humanity Board of Directors for 3 years. And presently, I'm on the board of Habitat for Humanity, building houses for the people that need it. And I do everything I do is for my country. Thank you.
Mr. Warwick, shall I repeat the question?
No, that's okay. Thank you. So I joined the Air Force and spent 23 years in the Air Force. I filled multiple leadership positions. And if you know anything in a lot of different career fields, usually you don't fill a position for very long. You usually fill the position, fix what needs to be fixed, and once you're finished, you move on to the next. So we have to learn really quickly, and I've learned that throughout the years in the military. So I think I have a lot of leadership and management skills and a very diverse portfolio from doing all that. One of the things, too, is I was brought up with great values. My parents, I was fortunate to have good parents who brought me up with good values. And I think that's another good qualification, because I know the trust thing is one thing that we really need in Lynn Haven. And going to the Air Force, it just enforced those values on me. Also, I have a master's degree in project management. And I've also been a leader in multiple organizations, such as Air Force Sergeant Association, Toastmasters, and Veteran Foreign Wars. After I retired, I actually done a lot of program acquisition management. And so that's just a fancy word for I track a lot of funds. I make sure they get obligated to certain things and that they expend all those things. And so those are some of the qualifications I have that I feel would make me a good candidate for commissioner.
Thank you.
All right. All right. So we'll start with, I guess so.
Question 2?
Yeah, question 2. There
You win again.
I was wondering. I'm like looking. I'm like, you're not putting up the 2 for me. Thank you, Mr. Hines. All right, number 2. What do you think is the most significant issue or issues facing the city, and how would you work to address them?
Right now, the biggest problems Lynn Haven have, or the biggest issue they have, is trust. And if you can't get trust of the people, there's no sense in being on the board and trying to do what you're supposed to do. I have trust and transparency is number 2, and then dependability. If I say I'm going to do something, it's just like money in the bank. I'm going to do it, whether they like it or not. Now, in order to gain trust, you have to listen to the people. Right now, the city of Lynn Haven, we have a meeting, and we'll open it to the public. We don't give the public opportunity to voice themselves and be heard and respond. You can talk, but you can't get a response. So that's not really a public meeting. In order to have a public meeting, it's a 2-way conversation. And that's what I plan to bring to Lynn Haven, the ability of the citizens to talk and be heard in action.
All right, Mr. Work, do you need the question repeated?
No, ma'am.
All right.
My biggest concern is the city debt. Depending on what you read, I believe we got about $68.9 million of debt. And Hurricane Michael definitely exacerbated that problem. But before Hurricane Michael was here, we had about $38 million of debt before it even came here. And imagine if we didn't have that much debt when we're trying to rebuild the city. So how do you fix that? Well, you cut expenses, increase revenue, right? That's the easy answer. The hard answer is how do you do that? So I actually did a public records request, and I looked at how much they paid for payroll from fiscal year 15 to fiscal year 20, and it's on my website, the copy of the public records request, and I exported all that information and put it in an Excel document, and how much that has increased 85%. Now, you expect it to go up because the cost of living goes up and as you hire more employees and things like that, but 85% is quite substantial. And another indicator I found was we paid about $1.8 million of overtime, and I think there might be areas where you might be worthwhile to hire somebody and save the city money as opposed to paying that much in overtime. As far as increase in revenue, if I had more time, I would go into it, but I think a lot of it has to do with bringing in more businesses and the type of business we come in, because businesses bring in a net tax revenue to the city, and bringing in that revenue will help decrease the debt and still be able to provide the quality of services that the residents need.
Well, we'll definitely get to that, how you're raising money part. Question number 3. All right, Mr. Warwick. Do you support the school tax levy? Why or why not?
Are you talking about the tax referendum on the ballot?
Yes, sir.
Simple answer is no. It's one whole millage point. So what that means is for every $100,000 that your property is assessed at, an extra $100 of taxes that person has to pay. I'm not opposed to it going up. I just think that's too steep. And I think probably similar to what Lynn Haven's got, I think a lot of it has to do with mismanagement of money. And I think there's areas that we can do better at. And I'm not saying I know I'm an expert at the school budget. I know it's a very complicated budget, but I definitely think there's things that we're not doing correctly. And let's just say we do pass this and they do get that millage rate. Will that solve the problem that we have? I don't believe it will. I think we need to solve the problem first and then figure it out. So I'm opposed to it.
Mr. Hines, do you support the school tax levy? Why or why not?
No, ma'am. Every time there's a problem in my part of the world, they want to say, we don't want to throw money at it. But every time there's a problem in their part of the world, they want to throw money at it. It don't make sense for the tax increase, because if you give them more money, they're going to waste more money. You have Nelson Building sitting over there, and you have 5 floors, 3 floors. Every time it rains, water comes to the first floor. If you build a building for $17 million, you can't keep water out of it. What makes you think you're going to keep money in it? The people in the building is the problem. We have too much leadership and not enough people on the ground doing the work. If we cut some of those people out of building 4, out of the main building, Nelson Building, then we can have better teachers and better equipment for the teachers to work with, instead of being so top heavy. And that's why I don't want to give them more money to waste.
All right, who has question 4? All right, Mr. Warwick. Do you support the referendum to amend and update your Lynn Haven charter? Why or why not?
I do not, and here's the reason why. The charter is in definite need of being updated. It's been about 30 years since it's been updated. And I brought it up back in August when they were trying to figure out who was going to be the mayor of Lynn Haven because of the federal indictment. And what the charter did was it limited us to 10 days to figure out who the mayor was going to be, and was not enough time. And so when I brought it up in August, nothing got done. I brought it up again in October, and I even offered to head the committee myself. And I said, if you don't want to pick me, that's fine, but we need to pick somebody. Nothing got done. And then in January, they go and they give it to the city attorney, from what I understand, based on inputs from the city staff. And the city attorney went through it. He made the changes that he felt was necessary. They discussed it at the commission, and then it passed, and now it's on the referendum. To me, that doesn't give the residents enough input on that. That is basically our Constitution, and we should dictate how we want the government to be ran. So I believe a committee needs to be set up. I think 5 people, and that way residents can come in, provide their inputs, and then it becomes our document. The way it's on the referendum right now, it's not our document, it's the commission's document. So I'm opposed to it.
All right, Mr. Hines.
I'm also opposed to it for a different reason. Because you get a committee of 5 people to work on a document for a whole city of 27 to 20,000 people don't make good sense. So it's going to have to be a much larger and more diverse group of people that need to look at this before you change the charter. It is an option on the voting public to make the decision if they want to change the charter. That don't mean the charter will change. It has some things in it, some improvements to it, and most of it is verbiage. The charter can be changed again in a year, or it can be changed again in 6 months. It's not a document that's made permanent. So right now, I would say no, but I wouldn't have a committee of 5 people look at it. I would have more diverse people in the community look at it to make a decision whether we want to do it or not in the city of Lynn Haven.
Question 5.
That's me.
All right. This is going to kind of come dovetail quickly on what you just said. Were there any decisions the council recently made with which you strongly disagreed? Please explain what you would have done differently.
The council made decisions in the past that were their decisions. I had nothing to do with decisions, and I won't second guess anyone that put into a position. If I'm put into a position and I make a decision, that's the decision I make, and I live with it.
Want to expound any? You got time.
Oh, that's no. I said what I meant to say.
All right. Okay.
I think one of the biggest concerns I have, and I'm probably responsible for this because I have been known to go in the commissions and ask a lot of tough questions, and it's not to make the council look bad, it's not to make anyone look bad, but it's because I have concerns about it, and I want the city to know about this, because I'm not afraid to ask questions and talk about the elephant in the room, because if we don't talk about the elephant in the room, then we don't move forward. But during public commentary, they no longer allow you to ask questions. And now, Mayor Pro Tem Russell did explain that he didn't want you to circumvent the process with the city. He wants them to answer it first. And I totally understand that, but I think a lot of it's situational. So like, for example, let's say there's a big pothole out in your front of the street by your house, and the first thing you do is go to the council and complain about it. Yeah, that's probably not the best forum. But if you've been complaining about it for months and they're not doing anything, then it would make sense to come to council and complain to them about it. But there are things that you might have questions on, especially if it's on the agenda, that you want answered, and you want the public to listen in on and know what their position on certain things. So that's one of the biggest concerns I have, is I want the public to be able to have enough freedom to go up there and be able to ask their questions, knowing that their questions will either get answered or they will find an answer for them.
All right, question 6.
That would be me, ma'am.
All right. So prior to Hurricane Michael, there were several affordable apartment complexes in your city. Almost none have been rebuilt, and the emphasis seems to be solely on single-family homes. What can or should the city do to encourage a better balance of housing in the city?
Well, in order for the city to move forward, there are some places that haven't been taken care of due to various reasons, such as maybe they didn't have insurance, or maybe they took the money and ran, or maybe they're still dealing with their insurance claims. So some of that's situational. I would think by this point, most of them are probably either they didn't have insurance or took the money. But there is a process for that, and I know that process changed recently to make sure that homes that are not having any forward movement, that they code enforcement gets involved. They're written up, and there's a process with that. They can appeal that. So if they're trying to fix it, they still have a process for that. But if they have no plans to fix that, then it's time for it to go to the next step and get a lien put on it so that it can get developed. Because the sooner we get that developed, then that's more tax revenue that we can start collecting as a city. So I know that's not a touchy-feely type answer, but I think that's the right answer.
So thinking of going back to the apartment complex part of this, so how are we going to get affordable apartment complexes?
Oh,
Because that was part of this as well.
so you're
You mentioned
talking
houses.
more, you're focused more on apartments?
Well, prior to Hurricane Michael, there were several affordable ones, and then they were destroyed, and they haven't been rebuilt. So, okay, it's all right. It's all right.
Oh, well, give him 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Give him 30
Yeah,
seconds.
just the apartments.
I mean, we did the follow-on.
I think you know, it's a supply and demand thing. If there's a demand for apartments, then absolutely we should try to develop that. But if it's because there's apartments that aren't getting fixed, I think it's pretty much the same answer that I said earlier.
Okay. Thank you.
Fair enough.
All right.
Mr. Hines.
Mr. Hines, do you need me to repeat the question?
No, ma'am.
A really long question.
Citizens of Bay County and Lynn Haven need affordable housing. You need to look at the impact fees that is to build a house in Lynn Haven. The impact fees are mighty high, or higher than I think they need to be in order to build a house here. We built 2 Habitat houses in Lynn Haven, and the impact fee was more than the price of the land, and I thought that was outrageous. So that's one thing we need to do to get more affordable housing built here. And affordable housing for some people, or I would say is 160, 170,000, but that might not be affordable housing for your workers. If you don't have affordable houses, you won't have any workers because everybody's not going to drive 30 or 40 minutes to get here and then be employed in Lynn Haven and have to drive 30 or 40 minutes to get back home. They're burning more gas than they're making money. So we do need affordable housing. We do need low-income housing here because everybody don't make the kind of money that some of us make. And we need to realize that as a world, it's our job to take care of the needy. They're always going to be needy. And us as citizens, we need to assist the needy. And affordable housing is one of the best ways we can do that.
All right. Question 7.
That would be.
All righty. Ethics is a primary concern in all elections this year. Former city officials are facing legal consequences over mishandling city contracts, and there are ongoing investigations of corruption within government bodies. What steps do you support to ensure more transparency and accountability in city government?
Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we have the right people in the positions. That's why this election is so important. We need, unfortunately, a lot of times when politicians get into office, I think they have a lot of good intentions of doing good things, but when they get in there, they're easily manipulated. And so that's why we need commissioners that have integrity and not afraid to make the tough, right decisions that need to be made. As far as transparency, need to make sure that all the information's out there, you know, not to try to hide anything. And I think, you know, as far as the bidding process, I like to change the bidding process a little bit. The way they do the bidding process in Lynn Haven is they pick 3 random people in the city, have them rate it, and then they bring that to the commission. I don't think that's the right way of doing it. And not only that, they need to make sure they show all the bids that are in for that. So just to be forthright with the information, make sure that you see all the information. I think that's the biggest thing, and not trying to make decisions because it might make you money or it might make your friend money. That's why this trust thing is such a huge thing in Lynn Haven, and integrity is a huge thing with me, and that's one of the main reasons why I'm running.
Mr. Hines, what steps do you support to ensure more transparency and accountability in city procurement?
Truth and transparency is easy. You either have it or you don't. Now, as far as transparency, if you open a window, you can see clearer than you can through a screen. And if you don't open the doors, people can't see, so they figure something's going on there to be hidden. Transparency is just plain and simple, and you can see what needs to be seen. And as a city commissioner, you will see everything that you need to see if I'm sitting on the seat, because I don't do deals under the table. Everything I do is on top of the table. The good old boy system in Bay County and in Lynn Haven has been going on for far too long. We have a requirement to get 3 bids for any bid, but if their friend give them a bid that they know, or somebody from Alabama give them a bid they know, they can release what the information was if they want to the local person, then the local person underbid them. Once they get the job triples in value. We can start with one job for $10 million, and by the end time they do the job, it's $17 million. It's happened in Bay County more than one time. It's happened in Lynn Haven more than one time. So those are the type of things we need to do. Go with the government process, 3 bid requests for every bid we have, then we won't have any problem with that. Because everyone will be able to see online, or they can print it out. You can put it in the library, the fire station, the police department for the people that's too old or don't want to go online. Because everybody don't go online regardless of what y'all do or what y'all say. Some of us don't want to, and some of us not going to. So those are my ideas of what we can do to improve it. As far as getting money, someone told me that was a grant-led city, so it must be a problem with grant management.
All right, number 8.
That's me.
That's you. All right, Mr. Hines. All right. Last year, the city increased its millage rate to 4.3 mills and approved the final budget near 31 million, plus 19 million disaster recovery fund budget created after Hurricane Michael. In your opinion, is this the best way to raise revenues to pay for city improvements?
Repeat that question.
All right. So last year, the city increased its millage rate to 4.3 mills and approved the final budget near 31 million. Plus, there was 19 million disaster recovery fund budget created after Hurricane Michael. In your opinion, is this the best way to raise revenues to pay for the city improvement? So basically using your millage rate to pay for city improvements by raising the...
No, ma'am. I don't think so. And I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't sign on to it. The citizens has enough. Some of our citizens only live on Social Security. And if you live on Social Security, if you die, you only get $255. So what do you think they're getting when they're living? All the money you put into Social Security don't even come back to you in your lifetime that you put into Social Security. So I wouldn't raise the millage rate on the people for any reason. Any reason. That's my idea.
All right.
But could you expand on what you would support to raise revenues?
Oh, I would say more than 10 different grants out there for small cities and rural areas that we can go out to get. If we get a grant writer, we need to put a grant writer on our employment somewhere to write for these grants because they're out there. There's small city police grant, there's small city fireman grant, there's small city grants just for small cities. And that's one way we get revenue coming in here with the proper grant manager to make this happen.
All right. Mr. Ward.
I do agree with the grant manager, but the one thing to keep in mind is you never know if we're going to get those grants, so we need to have something that's more definitive. And one of the things I learned, and I learned this from watching prior commission videos, and I saw a resident of Lynn Haven bring this up, and I had to contact this person. This person is a very intelligent individual, in my opinion. But one of the things I learned is with businesses, if you take a commercial business, for every dollar of tax revenue that we take, the city provides about 40 cents of city services. So it's a 60% net tax revenue. But when you take a type of business like industrial manufacturing, the city service is even less. It's only about 10 cents. So you're talking about a 90% tax revenue for that type of businesses. So I think it's very important for us to bring businesses in order to bring in enough revenue to bring the debt down. And not only that, be able to provide the quality of service. So how do you do that? Well, I don't know if this is coming up later, but there's a referendum for the tax exemption incentive, and I'm for it. And the thing to keep in mind is this is not for all businesses. There are certain requirements they have to meet, and there are certain type of businesses, like I talked about earlier, there are certain businesses that bring a lot more net tax revenue, and they have to bring in so many jobs, and they have to bring in a certain median salary. And so when you look at that, it's not 100% tax exempt, but it's a good portion is tax exempt. But there's a lot of benefits to that because it brings in a lot more jobs and a lot more people will spend money in that area, and that'll generate more businesses, and also that brings in more revenue because of the half-cent surtax that we have.
Well, you just stole my question.
Number 9.
That's number 9. I'm gonna have to think. Well, gee, got anything else to say?
Do you support it?
Yes. So do you support the local referendum to renew your city's authority to grant property tax exemptions to new or existing businesses that create jobs? Why or why not?
Yeah, I do, and I had the pleasure to sit down with Ben Yankee. He is the in charge of CRA and the Economic Development Council, and I was able to sit down and kind of understand what this referendum means. I think a lot of times people think it's for all businesses, and it's not. But one of the things I learned is I asked him, I said, well, how many times have we used this? And he said in the past 20 years, I think it was 4 times. So you're talking an average 1 every 5 years. It doesn't happen very often. But the other thing you got to have to remember is all the other cities in Bay County are also competing for those businesses, to include the county. And there's counties around us that are also competing for those businesses. So the only way that we can stay competitive for those type of businesses is to have an incentive like that. You know, it's not like we're going to give them a whole bunch of money up front, like the Pine Ridge that you might have heard about back in, I don't remember when that happened, I read about it. It's not like that. This is just a tax exemption, and there's a lot of benefits to it because it does generate a lot more businesses in. And let's say, you know, all those people, they go to a restaurant and eat. Well, maybe we don't have enough restaurants. That might spark up another restaurant to build up. And they come in, they spend money, all these businesses, so it helps them to become successful, and that helps generate more revenue for them. So I think it's a good idea.
Mr. Hines.
For existing businesses, I would say yes. For new businesses, I would say no, for the reason he brought up. If you give them a tax exempt up front to bring in a new business, so they're going to bring in a business and we're going to say we're going to bring you 10 jobs in the Bay County paying $70,000 a year, and they don't bring the jobs in, you won't get anything for it. If you charge them, have them bring them in, bring the 10 jobs in, pay up to $70,000 a year for 10 years, then I would give you a tax exemption for 20 years, twice of whatever you earn. If you earn your tax exempt in 5 years, then I give you a 10 years tax exempt. I would not give them a tax exempt in advance of bringing jobs here. Bay County and have been burnt before with that, and I wouldn't go with it. But for existing jobs and businesses, I would give them a tax exemption because they're already proven that they can bring jobs here, and they have jobs here. As far as bringing those new restaurants he was talking about, we have no workers because we have no affordable housing, then we still won't be bringing in that much money.
Oh my goodness. All right, number 10.
That's me.
All righty. So, what are the city's most pressing infrastructure needs, and how would you address them?
The most impressive need and the most important need is stormwater runoff and infrastructure. Anything under the ground you can't see because you can't really put a value on it until it falls in. And when the ground falls in, all you know in your neighborhood is you want that road repaired. Whether it's a water pipe, whether it's a gas line, whatever it is, it's all infrastructure. The county was built and the city was built back in 1911, and they used cast iron pipes then. Parts of Lynn Haven still have cast iron pipes in the ground. We cannot replace them all at one time, but we can replace them as needed, especially in and around new construction. Every time you build a new development, they put in new pipes in the ground, but the pipes that led into that area is still under the ground. So if we don't do 10% every time we do a new development, we do 10% of the existing pipes at the same time, then we can do that and have the people that's developing that land pay for that existing pipe to be replaced. Other than that, we're going to have a problem in this county forever and in this city. Infrastructure is unseen. People can't value it until you tear it up, and then you end up with a $20 million job. They say, well, how'd they get to be $20 million? Because it's been rotting for 60 years, and nobody did anything about it. It's a constant thing, and we got to constantly keep looking at it and keep replacing it as needed. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Warwick.
So when I talked about the city debt earlier, I wouldn't have been so worried about the city debt if we didn't have such a problem with infrastructure. And of course, as Mr. Hines alluded to, stormwater seems to be a really big problem here in Lynn Haven. And going door to door, I've talked to a lot of people, and I've found certain houses that have been flooded multiple times, and the story seems to be pretty close to the same, where they're like, I've been complaining about this for 15, 20 years and nothing gets done. But I had the privilege to sit down with Chris Lightfoot, who is the Assistant Public Works Director. I think he's been working there for about 6 months or so, and he has this plan to tackle this stormwater, and he showed it all to me. And I think he's got a really solid plan, but it's all going to come down to funding. And so the commission had voted on stormwater fees, and the one thing you got to keep in mind with stormwater fees is when they start using that, you'll no longer be paying your stormwater through your utility bill that you normally pay. It'll be going through your property taxes. So there was 2 options that the city had voted on. I wasn't a proponent for option 1. I was more for option 2 because it didn't increase the amount of fees that you have to pay in the future years by as much as the first option, because the last thing we want to do is break the bank for their local residents. But we do need to generate revenue for that somehow. Otherwise, we're going to be here for another 15, 20 years, and people are going to be up here going, how are you going to fix a stormwater problem? So we definitely need to fix it, and I think we have a solid plan. It's just going to come down to funding.
Question 11.
That's me.
All right. The 60-acre Lynn Haven Community Center Sports Complex has been an important feature of this community and for many years was a focal point of community sporting activities, including a 1-mile walking circuit. Well, since the significant hurricane damage, it has laid in ruins. What's the plan for this complex?
I'm unfamiliar with the plan for that complex right now. They spent a lot of money on the new complex they have at Kane Griffin Park to build a new baseball field with the tennis courts and the basketball courts there. So people that used to go to the old park may need to go to the new park until they can figure out a way to build a new park or improve on the old park. I don't know the plan for it, and I haven't researched that issue.
Fair enough. Are you familiar with this issue?
Yes. I know there's been engineering drawings that's been done on the sports complex, and they briefed it. I think they had a workshop on it, if I'm not mistaken. And so there's plans to do work in the sports complex. I think it's going to be 5 baseball fields, and they're going to have another building that's going to have different sports that you can do in the building. And the way it was explained to me is, I know a little bit about FEMA, but this is what they call a 428 project. And what that means is, like I said, this is the way it explained to me, was all the funding for the sports complex will be paid for by FEMA. 100% is what we were briefed. And so that's the future plan. So right now, like I said, they got the engineering drawings done right now, and I guess the next step is the design build bid is the next step.
All righty, the last question, number 12. All right. So we know that citizen participation is important to a healthy democracy. How best would you encourage residents' participation in your decision-making process?
So I think we need to, going door to door, I've been talking to a lot of people, trying to urge them to come to the commission meetings and get actively involved. And I think we need a lot of active involvement. And I'm not sure the reason. I know a couple things that's been discussed is the meeting times. That might be part of it, and the trust part might be the other part. And so regaining the trust of the residents, hopefully that'll drive more people to get actively involved in the city. And just being open with them, making sure that you're open so they can take phone calls, get the message out there, and do your research so that you know what you're talking about when you talk to them. I think a lot of times, well, I'll take a step back. I think in the commission meetings, like we talked about earlier, I think a lot of times residents don't feel like they're welcome to come in and talk to them. And I think that's the other big piece. And that's the culture that I want to change when I get on the commission, that they are free to come up and talk. They don't have to walk on eggshells or anything like that. I want them to feel that they're comfortable enough to be able to ask me questions, and that I will give them the best answer I can possibly get. So I think creating that relationship with the residents is the important piece in that.
All right, Mr. Hines, last question.
Same question, right?
Same
Yes, sir.
question.
Okay. We have Ken Singer Park, we have Sharon Sheffield Park, we have Kane Griffin Park, and we have a sports complex. As a city commissioner, I could go to each one of them parks and hold a town hall meeting on Monday prior to the board meeting on Tuesday to get the citizens' ideas and the citizen verbiage or whatever they want to display to the county or the city. But public trust is something you have to earn. So I would call a meeting in certain part of the town, and everybody that live around there, they go down there all the time in Ken Griffin Park and stuff, and just talk to them and have a meeting and let them know in advance, put it out at least a week in advance, let them know they can plan their schedule around it, come out, say what they want to say, get verbiage from me, whatever I got to say about it, and I have that data to take to the next county board commission meeting, and then do the same thing at different sections of the city that no person will have to go to just one meeting in one location. I would go to them instead of them coming to me. And that's how I would do the communication with the citizens.
We closed your panel with a statement, and Mr. Hines, alphabetically, you get to go first. A closing statement for 60 seconds.
I was introduced as George Hines Sr., but George Hines Sr. died more than 50 years ago. I'm George H. Hines Jr.
Junior.
I'm running for commissioner,
Right on your
seat
sign.
number 3. Yes, right on seat number 3. And I would like your vote. If you feel that you can't vote for me, vote for somebody. Don't sit at the house. Everybody needs to get out and vote in this city. We have a municipal election, and we have between 20 and 27,000 people, and you may have 1,200 people go out and vote. That's ridiculous. We all have people that died and fought for our right to vote, and we need to vote. Vote for me if you can. If you can't, vote. Thank you.
Mr. Warwick.
I think the biggest thing that's on people's mind as far as who they should vote for is the integrity thing. And it's hard for us to prove to you that we have integrity. And I can sit here and say, yep, I have integrity, believe me. But I think the only way I can tell you in a way that hopefully will prove that I have integrity with you is I was fortunate that I had good parents that brought me up with good values. And so when I joined the Air Force, those values that were ingrained in me since I was born was also enforced on me when I went in the Air Force. And if you know anything about the Air Force, we got 3 core values: integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And the integrity being the biggest piece of that. And so I want you to know that integrity is ingrained in me. It's part of my DNA, and I will never veer away from that line. I will always do what's best for the residents, and I will never be a corrupt politician, and that is my promise to the residents of Lynn Haven. So you heard it from me, and I will never, ever do that. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all so very much. We appreciate you. And we will have our next panel of candidates in just a couple minutes. Give us maybe 5 minutes to make the transition, and then we will come back and present our candidates for seat 4. And there will be 2 of them with 2 new moderators. So we'll make that transition now. Thank you for your patience.
It felt like a burden, but once I could grasp it, you took me further than I was asking. And simply to see you, it's worth it all. My life is an altar. Let your fire fall. If you say it's wrong, then I'll say no. If you say release, I'm letting go. If you're in it with me, I'll begin. And when you say to jump, I'm diving in. If you say be still, then I will wait. If you say to trust, I will obey. Teach me how to follow in your way. I'm done chasing feelings. Spirit, lead me. Oh, Spirit. Yeah, let's just sing it out. Oh, Spirit, lead me. When all hope is gone. When all hope is gone, and your word is all I've got, I have to believe you still bring water from release, I'm letting go. If you're in it with me, I'll begin. And when you say to jump, I'm diving in. If you say be still, then I will wait. If you say to trust, I will obey. You're the only truth for life, the way. I'm done chasing feelings. Spirit.
Okay, we're ready to get started with our second panel. Coming now, we have Brian Dick and Brian Gray, who will be questioned by our league members, Mr. Scott Clemens and Ms. Karen Brown. And so to remind our candidates of our rules, we do have an equitable means of you all answering an even number of questions first. And so our third candidate that was not able to be here this evening did send in a statement that will be read by Ms. Jamie Shepard, our Voter Services Chairman.
Is this on? Yeah. Yes, it is. A statement from Judy Tender. First, I would like to say thank you to the League of Women Voters. Yay, thank you. Personally, I've been looking forward to participating with my fellow candidates before this important upcoming election on April 20th. I have served Lynn Haven residents since April 2017. In the past 4 years, I have assisted them by making myself personally available to them in person, by phone, text, and email. I think my service as a Lynn Haven commissioner speaks for itself. I am a commissioner who is not intimidated or afraid to vote no when it's necessary, even when I'm the only no vote, because I'm representing the people of Lynn Haven, not myself, or because of some future agenda. Asking questions only leads to answers. I believe we have a need to creatively become more transparent with our residents, whether it be through community roundtables or newsletters for those who are not computer-oriented, posting important financial facts for the public, or whatever it takes to regain the trust of the people. Being a resident friendly and encouraging their input is vital for restoring public trust. One-sided comments and statements do not encourage a dialogue of acceptance and belonging to all. Some of the greatest ideas simply come from simply listening. I apologize for my absence this evening, but a nasty head cold I've been fighting for the last 4 days just won't let go, and uncontrollable coughing events that occur are nothing to be shared with others. Amen to that. Good luck to all candidates tonight. Lynn Haven is very fortunate to have so many residents willing to give of themselves and their time to our fine city. Sincerely, Judy Tender, Lynn Haven Commissioner, candidate for seat 4.
Okay, I have question number 1. Who has drawn that lucky number? All right, Mr. Gray. How does your work experience in the public and or the private sector and your life experience qualify you for this position?
Well, thank you. Is this on? Okay, there we go. Testing. Well, thank you for that question. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and I'm Brian Gray. My name might be down there. But I've been a resident of Lynn Haven since 1965. I have a master's degree in clinical applied psychology from the Florida State University. I have a master's degree in theology and divinity from Liberty Baptist Theological Seminary. I've retired from the state of Florida Department of Corrections Probation and Parole Services with 24 years of leadership as a senior probation officer. I'm retired from the Florida Army National Guard here at the local unit, 31 years, 4 combat deployments to wonderful places like Iraq, Pakistan, Ukraine. Probably not on the tourist agenda, but it's there nonetheless. I have a shirt that says vote for a vet, and it's not, hey, look, I'm a vet. It's not about me at all. It's about what a vet represents: integrity, trust, self-service, sacrifice, thinking of others. My family's here. My lovely wife, she makes me look better all the time because I definitely married up. And I'm just looking forward to the opportunity to serve. I'm not running against anyone. I'm just making an application to serve the citizens of Lynn Haven because trust has been eroded, and I've been around for a long time, and I really want to see great things happen to Lynn Haven. Back of my shirt says "Make Lynn Haven Great Again," and I believe together we can and will make Lynn Haven great again. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dick?
Hello, everybody. My name is Brian Dick. I've been in Bay County since 1979 when my family moved here. Graduated from Rutherford High School, went to Jenks Junior High School, went to A.D. Harris. My mom and dad owned a couple of hotels here in town. We've also owned the ice cream cone at Maybe Member on Highway or Cove Boulevard. Went into the military. I was injured during Desert Storm, so I am a disabled vet. Served my country proudly and would continue to do so if I was able to. Running for city commissioner mainly because of the distrust and the lack of transparency that has happened to the city of Lynn Haven. I can't reiterate enough the comment that Mayor Pro Tem Russell said last time after this latest batch of indictments came down. It's just like another punch in the gut, and we're tired of it. I am full of nothing but integrity. I am full of nothing but serving my neighbor. Everybody in Lynn Haven is my neighbor, not just the person that lives next door to me. I'm respectfully and humbly asking for your vote and looking better to continue to make Lynn Haven better. It's already great. We're just going to make it better. Thank you.
Question number 2. Okay, Mr. Dick, that comes to you first. What do you think is the most important issue facing Lynn Haven today, and how would you address it?
Most important issue is trust and transparency. We have, in the last couple of elections, the citizens have selected people that they wanted to speak for them, to make decisions for them, and those people failed them. And for whatever reason they had, that is where I would say 90 to 95% of all Lynn Haven residents just cannot believe what's going on in City Hall. That needs to change. That has to change. In my opinion, that is the biggest issue.
What specifically would you do to address that?
Absolutely, thank you. First of all, I would think in the commission meetings, and I said this in a reception that we had not too long ago, I believe that there needs to be a commission meeting workshop prior to the commission meeting. So if the meeting is on a Tuesday, maybe have it the prior Thursday. Everybody comes in, everybody knows what's on the agenda, citizens can come in, they can ask questions, there's a dialogue back and forth. That in itself will create trust, it will show transparency, and you'll start getting the belief back from the citizens that the city is desperately needing.
Thank you. I've been walking around Lynn Haven since probably January, talking to a lot of different people in a lot of different neighborhoods, and the two things that come to mind that they've talked to me the most about is, number one, the debt. We've talked to several different people, and you can get an answer from $64 million to $68 million to, as Commissioner Aldridge said on a radio show last week, $71 million, so we don't know. If you look at the city budget, you still don't know. Who do we owe? How much do we owe? And how are we going to pay that back? I don't know. I can't run my business like that, and I hope we don't get to a point where the banks aren't going to loan us any more money and that the city might go insolvent. There's no need to go there. Also, with trust, we all learned a lesson in kindergarten about how to get along with others and how to tell the truth. We're all human. We're going to make mistakes, so I'm not going to throw stones at anybody, but in order to reestablish trust, perhaps we can have, as the charter allows for, a civil service commission. That way the city department heads can be free to hire, fire, run the departments without thinking, oh man, I might get fired by the city manager if I do this, or I can't take that question, that's going to have to go to the city manager. There has to be a better way where public can have input. Why not have coffee with the commissioner Saturday morning at 9 o'clock at a time that's convenient for people, not just 9 to 5, Monday through Friday when it's convenient for everybody who works at the city. If they're there for a part-time job and a paycheck, they don't need to be there anyway. We need to get 2 new commissioners and a new mayor and reestablish trust. Thank you.
Thank you. Question number 3. All right, Mr. Gray. Do you support the school tax levy? Why or why not?
Thank you for that question. I have a great deal of respect for Bill Husfeld. He's a great guy, great leader. But as was said before, there's a whole lot of people working in the Nelson building that didn't used to work there. We're really top heavy in the school system. After the Hurricane Michael and then Michael White, we've had a reduction in the school system population, but we've had an increase in the federal funding and at the state level and the federal level. So there's plenty of money coming in. We just need to make sure that it's going in the right direction and that too much money is being spent in the top and teachers don't have enough in the classroom. And the starting pay of a teacher in Bay County, as we read in the newspaper from the governor's office, needs to be $45,000. Well, my sister-in-law just started in October, and I can assure you it's nowhere near that. And we definitely need to do something about that instead of just talking about it. Thank you.
Mr. Dick?
I too would vote no. The school board is getting a lot of money from the Fed. They don't need to try and tax us anymore. They just need to take the money that they're getting. They need to manage it properly, spend it the way it's supposed to be spent, and take care of our teachers.
Okay, question number 4. Okay, to you, Mr. Dick. Do you support the referendum to amend and update the Lynn Haven Charter? Why or why not?
I have heard other candidates, and I'm going to explain myself. I'm going to support that referendum because if you vote no on it, then a woman cannot be mayor. One of the candidates is a female for mayor. If they vote no, in a sense, she cannot be mayor. I will vote yes, so she can have the opportunity to be mayor.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. Do you support the referendum to amend and update the Lynn Haven Charter? Why or why not?
Absolutely not, because citizens did not have any input into how this was formulated. The way it went down was the city manager and the powers that be turned it over to the city attorney for the attorney to present this as a ballot referendum idea. To rush it through to get it on this ballot is not a good idea. We should sit down and have more citizen input and find out what the citizens of Lynn Haven want, not what the powers that be want. So what? We have to wait 2 more years for the next election. That's okay. We want to make sure this is done right because, 50 years ago, things were different than it is now. We need to make sure going forward we have what we need in Lynn Haven, not just what an attorney says. We need to find out what the citizens of Lynn Haven want. Thank you.
Okay, question number 5. Oh, Mr. Dick. Were there any decisions the council recently made with which you strongly disagreed? And please explain what you would have done differently, if so.
I do not believe the council has made any decisions that I am strongly against. I would take this opportunity to go and say that I feel that if you are prepared to do your job that you are elected to do, a lot of this lack of transparency, a lack of trust, a lack of not knowing what the budget number is, all of this can all be rectified by going to City Hall and seeing the city manager, asking to speak to the finance director, asked to speak to Shannon Scribner, who oversees how everything is paid, all the checks and balances. If people will go and speak, you will know these answers. There's 2 people to my knowledge who actually know what the city debt is. Kiki Roman, the finance director, and Vicki Gaynor, the city manager. If you go to either one of them, they will tell you exactly what that dollar amount is. So therefore, it's 71, it's 68, it's 63. Why do all that? That creates division and a lack of unity. That is not what we need. As far as I'm concerned, what the city has done from the meetings that I have been to, all the decisions that have been made, I am okay with.
Mr. Gray?
Thank you for that question. There's several things that the commission has done recently that I don't agree with. Number one, as far as the debt goes, I've met with Vicki Gaynor and I've looked over the paperwork and she did not have a straight answer. I can guarantee you that. Or she just didn't want to tell me. I don't know. I'm not going to cast stones, but we really do need to know what the debt is without a doubt. It should be crystal clear to the public when they read off the website what our debt is. One commission decision that I really don't agree with is the meeting times for the commission meetings themselves. There's no reason why we should accommodate city people just because they have a 9-to-5 Monday through Friday job. Not everybody is fortunate to have that. I'm a licensed mental health counselor next door with the Veterans Administration because I believe that taking care of vets is what we should be doing, and their family as well. Why can't we have a city commission meeting Saturday morning at 9 o'clock? I mean, so the public can come talk to their elected officials who work for them, not the other way around. They tend to get confused. Thank you.
Okay, in response to question 2, both of our candidates referred to ethics issues, and the next question relates to ethics. If there's no objection, I will bypass that question. Question number 7 then. Mr. Dick, you're drawing the short card on most of these. Question 7. Citizens have voiced concern over the lack of compliance with the permitting standards by the Planning Board. What are your ideas to improve compliance and transparency in the permitting process?
As far as the permitting process goes, if I'm not mistaken, only a licensed contractor, first of all, can request a permit. If a homeowner is to go in and he wants to do some kind of a permit for electrical or plumbing or putting a new roof on, those items have to be done by code by a licensed contractor. And so those contractors are the ones that actually have to submit to have those permits pulled. In the event that somebody is doing it and it's a shady operation, if you will, then that needs to be looked into. It needs to be found out who's the one that signed off on those permits, why they did it, and then there has to be appropriate disregard for that.
Are you aware of any other issues of non-compliance or lack of compliance in the permitting process that you would want to address?
Not at this moment.
Okay. All right.
But I am looking.
Okay. Very good. Mr. Gray, do I need to repeat the question?
Please.
Sure. Citizens have voiced concerns over the lack of compliance with the permitting standards by the Planning Board. What are your ideas to improve compliance and transparency in that process?
Absolutely. The permitting process, number one, is far too onerous for a homeowner to be able to afford to build an affordable house to begin with. The impact fees, the assessment fees, the application fees. I talked to a gentleman in Forest Park area, Pine Forest area, excuse me, and he's a disabled vet from Korea, I believe, and he's riding around in a wheelchair, and he wanted to build a cover over his driveway so he wouldn't get wet getting in his car, just to replace it from the hurricane. And he thought, well, I got to pay a $300 fee just to go before the commission. If I get turned down, I'll lose my $300. I called the city manager or sent her an email. She sent me back, no, it's $600 just to come before the commission and to get turned down or to be able to build something so you won't get wet coming in your driveway. This is ridiculous. I mean, there's no reason why this should even exist. It should be transparent, absolutely. We should be able to trust our elected officials to do what's best for the citizens of Lynn Haven, not their own interest or their contracting friends or whoever the case may be. I don't know. But yeah, we absolutely should have transparency and trust throughout all levels of city government. Thank you.
Who has question number 8?
Me.
All right, Mr. Dick. How familiar are you with the budgeting process and city staffing, which is always an issue? And what budget problems do you see first, and how would you address them?
From talking with certain department heads, fire chief, police chief, Chris Lightfoot, and Buddy Baker over public utilities, the budgeting is hurtful or, struggling a little bit, but it's mainly because out of this 63 million that the debt is that what we have, over half of that is for hurricane debris removal. You take that out, boom, you're back down in the 30s again. That doesn't mean that we're in a good place. We are in a good place financially for the most part, but we can be a lot better. I think that the people that are in place right now doing the budgeting, which would be Kiki and Shannon and Vicky, working with the department heads to make sure that they're spending their monies correctly, will continue to put us in the trajectory that we're in right now, which is reducing the debt. A lot of people don't want to look at that. They don't want to talk about it. All they want to talk about is from this date until this date, we went from this until this. Are the people that are in City Hall right now, were they there then? The answer would be no. Look at the body of work that they've done now, and you cannot do anything but come to the conclusion that with this staff that's in there right now, they're in the right direction.
A follow-up question, if I might. You talked about the majority of the debt is due to Hurricane Michael.
At least half of it.
How would you address that as a city council member?
There's not, I mean, the debt is what the debt is as far as, I mean, with the hurricane debris removal, it's there. You can't, well, I would say you can't make it go away, but then who knows what the indictments are going to come and so on. What I would say, and I haven't had an opportunity to suggest this in a commission meeting yet, is I do believe that the city attorney should definitely be filing motion for restitution from those who have been indicted and or pled guilty for us to recoup some of the money that they stole. I would go further into it to make sure that the contracts that they were generated were legit and above board. If not, then there could even be more money that could be coming back to the city, helping us with the debt.
Thank you. Mr. Gray?
Thank you. It would be nice to know for a fact that half the debt was related to Hurricane Michael, but you can't tell that by looking at the budget. You can't even tell how much we owe, who we owe it to, or how we're going to pay it back. As opposed to another city, say Callaway, for instance, they have a line item for every position. It's a person, how much they make, what their responsibility is, and the same thing with the budget, how much they pay. As far as people there now in city government that wasn't there during Hurricane, that's completely false. Vicki Gaynor is the city manager now. She was the number 2 then, and she was writing checks. I mean, you can't say that people are there now that wasn't there then. We can have a civil service commission. I mean, Commissioner Tender's been there 4 years. I mean, she could probably shed some light on that. The budgeting process itself is a disaster because we don't have a line item to figure out what's going on. Keeping people in the dark is not the way to run a city. By having a civil service commission, like I alluded to a while ago, it would be nice to have one because you could have public input, you can have professional input, and you can make sure the people that are in the positions of authority are qualified and that they're the best candidate for that job, not just, hey, who decided this person gets this job? One person. Who decided that person got fired? One person. You're creating the appearance of impropriety and shenanigans and, the good old boy system. It shouldn't be even an iota of appearance. Everything should be transparent and open to the public. Thank you.
May I rebut to that just a little bit?
Yeah, do we have time? Yes.
Okay, she said I have to wait? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead. All right, okay. Okay, the next question relates to the CRA. Lynn Haven's Community Redevelopment Agency was created, and the CRA plan was established in 2003. That plan allows multiple potential uses of that incremental tax financing. And those allowable uses are economic development, future land use, transportation, downtown development, housing, recreation, and community aesthetics. What projects do you support using these CRA funds for the 2021 budget? In other words, which of these would be your priority as how we would spend that money?
Okay, and I'm assuming that's question number 9?
Yes.
That is number 9.
Okay, so that'd be for me. All right, just a quick rebuttal from, she said I could do that. You cannot compare Lynn Haven to Callaway. I lived in Callaway, grew up in Callaway for a majority of my life. They have a smaller population. They have a smaller square mile. They don't have a police department. It was dissolved and is now the sheriff's department. They have a very small fire department, which I believe is county. So if you're going to compare, it needs to be apples to apples, not apples to oranges. That's all I got to say about that. As far as the CRA, the historical part of the CRA needs to stay in place. This city is rich in history, and it needs to continue to be rich in history. I know that there were some streetlights that were going to be put up that I was solely happy about. And I also believe that having it, the land usage on it needs to be to where you're not, especially in the CRA area, you are not going to have major blow up of developments and all that. It needs to stay very historical.
Do I need, Mr. Gray, should I repeat the question for you?
Please, yeah.
Okay. So Lynn Haven's Community Redevelopment Agency was created, and the CRA plan was established in 2003. It allows that funding from that to be used for multiple uses, and I want to ask you what you perceive are the priorities among these uses. It can be for economic development, future land use, transportation, downtown development, housing, recreation, and community aesthetics. Which of those would you regard as the priorities as to where we ought to devote that funding?
Absolutely, thank you. As far as the city of Callaway's budget versus the city of Lynn Haven's budget, it's the exact same. It's a budget for a city that's of like size, give or take. You have to have a line item that shows expenses and what it's for. A line item that shows you expenses for a personnel budget. The way Lynn Haven's budget is now, you can go back, like Jamie was saying a while ago, you can go back 5 years and just see where it's increased 75 to 80%. What it showed us every year is just a clump of funds. You don't know what it's for, you don't know where it's going. We should not be borrowing against 10-year anticipated revenue. We should spend money as it comes in every year, because not only were you increasing the debt that nobody knows what it is, but you're also, oh, it's only 2% interest. Well, that's great, but 60, 70 million, that's a lot of interest. As far as the CRA goes, we should concentrate on affordable housing, like Mr. Hines alluded to earlier. You can bring all the industry you want to in here, and that's wonderful. I love having good jobs that pay good and bring people in. But if you don't have affordable housing for people to live in, you know, $250,000, $300,000, and $500,000 homes, he could probably tell you more about that. That's not affordable to the workers of Lynn Haven. I don't know. There's got to be a better answer. Maybe we should look at hiring a grant writer for the city of Lynn Haven, because there may be funds available out there that we just simply don't know because we don't know. We should take everything and make sure that we have a CRA that's anticipating future growth, because maybe we don't have motels and hotels a lot. We got one, but maybe there may be more in the future, and we should be more accommodating to all the citizens. Thank you.
Okay, question number 10. All right, Mr. Gray. Citizens are always concerned about storm water runoff during heavy rains, not to mention hurricanes. According to some reports, stormwater runoff is the worst pollutant in the bay and negatively impacts recreation and marine life. What changes to Lynn Haven's stormwater management program do you believe should be made to improve your stormwater control? And most importantly, who should pay for it?
Thank you. I appreciate that. Number one, it's not a new problem like, uh-oh, this just happened. We didn't know about this. It's been going on for a long, long time. And it's pretty embarrassing that Highway 77 right by Lynn Haven First Baptist floods every chance it gets. As far as who's going to pay for it, Lynn Haven just got a new piece of equipment that should help with the stormwater drainage system as far as cleaning out. Maybe we could dig out ditches a little more. I don't know. But constantly hammering the homeowners with, oh, your assessment's the highest it's been ever. Oh, your water, sewer, and garbage is the highest it's ever been. Oh, we're going to do a new stormwater assessment on you. Well, quit hammering the homeowners every chance you get. Why can't we explore the possibility of doing a 1% sales tax or something like that that other cities are able to do? So that way everybody pays. The guy that buys a beer at the junior store can chip in just like everybody else. The homeowner who's trying to stay above water because of the lack of affordable housing and good paying jobs, he doesn't need to have constantly being hammered every time he tries to get ahead of the game. We got a maintenance schedule going. I know there's some great people that work for the city of Lynn Haven, and by having a civil service commission, they could be free to do their job and to serve the citizens of Lynn Haven. Their employees won't worry about, man, what about this brain drain? We keep losing people to Okaloosa County. We keep losing people to Panama City because they pay a lot better. Lynn Haven has the money. It's not a money problem as far as income goes. It's an expense problem. Where's the money going? We don't have a line item budget to be able to see that, and there's no reason why we shouldn't. I mean, we didn't just get created yesterday. We've been in business for about 100 years. Thank you.
when I had spoke with Chris Lightfoot, who works in the stormwater department, what he did with Jamie, he sat down with me and he had what he considers his master plan for stormwater. And it was page after page after page of project and project and project. Stuff that was underway right now, stuff that is coming up, stuff that has been completed, stuff that they got to continue getting budgeting for. Excuse me. One thing that I don't know, I haven't heard from any other candidate, was the rescue plan that has come out from Biden for the state of Florida. It was X amount of billions of dollars for the state, and then it was broken down into county, then municipality. Lynn Haven is scheduled to get $8.63 million. That money is to go to sewer, water, stormwater. You're going to get, as soon as you submit what's going to be worked on, you get 50% of that. So that's $4.3 million right there. Chris told me that if he could get that, a lot of the stormwater issues would be resolved right then. What I would like to do is I would like to get in front of the commission, get him in front of the commission, have them listen to what his plan is, vote on it, let's move forward and get the stormwater resolved once and for all.
Okay, to save money and to protect the environment, some cities are installing solar panels on government buildings. They're encouraging solar infrastructure for both businesses and homes. Is this an initiative that Lynn Haven should pursue?
Number 11.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. There you go. Got me there. Okay. I'm infantry. You got to explain it to me a little more. Yes, I believe we should do an all the above approach. If there's federal grant money available, if there's state grant money available, if we can build a better mousetrap, absolutely, man, let's do it. And regarding the finances of the city and being able to do these fine projects, if we had a look at our finances and we're able to see what's going on, then we could afford to be able to do some more things. Maybe we should have a workshop before the city commission meeting so we can have a look at the checks that are fixing to be wrote, so we don't pay the same contractor 3 times for the same invoice. I mean, there's no reason why that should be happening. Lynn Haven is a great city. We got a great future ahead of us. We've got some great people. We got some good city employees. They just need to be free to do their job. And yes, I think we should take care of every available opportunity there is to grant money, matching funds, whatever the case may be. It's a good way to move forward, I think.
Mr. Clemens, if you don't mind, can you please repeat the question?
To save money and protect the environment, many cities are using solar panels on government buildings, and they're encouraging solar power infrastructure for homes and businesses. Is this something that Lynn Haven should pursue?
Absolutely. And I think that that would be where a grant writer would be essential. That's what they do, is they look for these funds out there for different aspects of the city. I do have to go back and say, I believe that there's a bit of, I don't want to say fear-mongering, but a bit of division and distrust that continues to be put out there, where there is a lack of communication with the city. Anytime that I have emailed, anytime that I have called, anytime that I have went up there, I was always able to speak to somebody who I was going to have a question with and get the answer. So I have to disagree with my opponent as far as what the budget looks like and how it is perceived. I can read it just fine. I have no issues reading it just fine. That's why I can tell you $63 million in debt. Half of that is debris removal. That's because I can read it. Is it difficult for some? Absolutely, it may be. But for me, no, I can understand it just clearly. But as far as using renewable sources to help with the city, solar panels, things like that, absolutely. I think that would be great.
Could you repeat the question?
You already answered.
Oh, I'm next?
Yeah, you were
okay.
yes.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
See, I told you, you got to explain to me a little bit.
All right, question number 12.
That's-
All right.
There we go.
And
Yeah,
it's going to be a multi-part question.
All right.
As we all know, transparency has been an issue in many elections, and voter turnout has already been addressed previously in the other the seat 3, I think. What can your city do? What can Lynn Haven do to foster a more open and accepting multicultural climate? And how can the city empower voters to participate in the governmental process and decision making?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I agree. There is a lot of distrust going around and a lack of communication, but if someone can show me in the budget how much we owe, I would love to see it because I can't find it. As far as transparency, sure, we should have transparency. We should have an open climate. And in order to foster that, government should operate at the convenience of its citizens. If we can have meetings on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, Monday night at 6 o'clock, whatever the citizens are good with. As far as having coffee with the commissioner on Saturday morning having a cup of coffee, just talking about what's on their mind, that's awesome. I would love to be able to empower voters more that way. And maybe we can have more than just a few people turn out. As was alluded to before, there's probably 23,000 citizens in Lynn Haven. 2 years ago at the last municipal election, 15,000 registered and only 1,400 voted. There's no reason for that to happen. Every vote counts. Don't feel like your vote don't count. It don't matter. I don't have to vote. It don't matter. It does matter. Every vote matters. And in a municipal election, it matters a lot because you get what you vote for. And that's how things have been able to go on with the good old boy system and all the shenanigans that's been going on, because it's not brought out to the light. Things are done behind closed doors. And by having a civil service commission, by having coffee with the commissioner, by having workshops, public workshops, it can go a long way to reestablish the trust. We got some great people in Lynn Haven. We got some great employees. We got some leadership, but it can definitely improve, and I would love to be a part of that. Thank you.
Mr. Dick?
Repeat, please.
Okay, it's a combination question. What can Lynn Haven do to foster a more open and accepting multicultural climate for the citizens, and also empower voter participation in the governmental decision-making process?
As I alluded to in the previous candidate reception last week, I believe it's vital to have the commission workshops a week before, because it is going to be open to every and all citizen in Lynn Haven. I know that there's even going to be some that aren't even residents of Lynn Haven that are still going to be there because they like Lynn Haven and maybe they're in the garden club or what have you. That to me is vital because they can be heard. The commission can listen. Not every commissioner, not every mayor, not every city manager is going to have always the right answer. But you never know what might happen if Mr. Clemens came to one of those meetings and he gave us an idea about something and it just clicked. Ended up saving millions of dollars. These are the types of things that need to happen. And when you open the door like that, all walks of life can come in. And I look forward to being up there. I look forward to making the motions that I think will help get the city in a faster, better position. We're already great. We are. But we need to get even greater and better. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, you each, as you'll recall from the rules, you each now have an opportunity for a closing statement. You each have 60 seconds apiece. And I'm not sure who goes first. Okay, Mr. Dick.
First of all, I want to thank Lynn Haven United Methodist for having this forum. League of Women Voters, thank you so much for participating and showing your interest in this election. I'm very much looking forward to April 20th and very interested in seeing how the citizens of Lynn Haven voice their opinion, voice who they want to speak on their behalf. I hope that you'll see that everything that I have spoken is because I've been prepared, that I have sat down, I have asked the questions. I am always available, does not matter when or where. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to make an application to work for the citizens of Lynn Haven and to serve a cause greater than myself. I'm not a politician. If you hadn't found out by now, I figured that out. I'm not a great speaker, but I speak my mind and I speak what people want me to speak. I will always honor my conservative beliefs, my Christian values, and constitutional principles. I'm tired of sitting around complaining. I want to get in there and do something and help out because I've complained a lot and it really hadn't done much. So early voting starts April the 12th. Please get out and vote. Thanks for your consideration. I'm just a private citizen and I've got some great ideas. I listen to great ideas. I got a pamphlet. I got a Facebook page, Gray for Bay. On there is my phone number, and you can call me anytime. I'll answer my phone. When you try to make contact with city officials at the city meetings, sometimes I say, oh, you can't ask questions here. Well, where are you going to get your answers? They got an email, they got a phone number, but it's only as good as if they answer it. And I'm running about 50-50 about people actually answering the phone and actually answering their email. So we got a good system. It could just be better. Thank you very much.
All right, you guys, we're going to switch out to the next segment here for the mayor race, and then we will read out the note we got for that as well. So just take a couple minutes. We're going to switch out.
I love you, Lord. Oh, your mercy never fails me.
Mr. Brown and Mr. Nelson.
All my days, I've been held
Next
in your
contestant,
hand.
whatever it is we're gonna say.
From the moment that I wake up
I got you. Here.
until I lay my head. Oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Okay.
All my life you have been faithful. All my life you have been so good.
Mr. Nelson.
With every breath that I am able, I will sing of the goodness
We don't want to do a
of
question.
God.
For different ones, just let me know.
I love your voice.
You want to take the odds to start? Got it.
And in darkest night, you were close like no other. I love you as a father.
I'll pick another
I
even
love
one.
you as a friend. And I have lived in the goodness of God. Yeah. And all my life you have been faithful.
James got it.
And all my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able,
Got it, man.
I will sing of the goodness of God. Your goodness is running out, it's running out.
ready? Yes. Excellent. Miss Fields could not be here this evening, but she sent us a message to read to you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for allowing me the opportunity to present a statement in lieu of my physical presence. If any of you have had the pleasure to engage with me through recent interviews or other community events, I extend my gratitude for your support, and I encourage you to reach out and continue to address your key concerns in my direction. And now for those of you I have not had the pleasure to meet and engage in conversation with, running for mayor for the city of Lynn Haven has so far been a great honor and tremendously rewarding. Not only have you been an integral part of my campaign, but you continue to encourage me to educate and advocate for the city's most paramount concerns. I am running this race against two incredible candidates who love this city as much as I do. I believe my leadership and experience will deliver this community the integrity, core values, and economic success it deserves. Again, I regret that I missed this event, but I cannot wait to hear from you or meet you in person in the future. For more information, go to Ellen Fields for Lynn Haven Mayor on Facebook. Read more about her at bayvotes.org. That's the Supervisor of Elections website. Or email her at ellenfields2021@gmail.com. Most sincerely, Ellen Fields, candidate for Lynn Haven Mayor.
Okay, who has question number 1? How does your work experience in the public and or private sector and your life experience qualify you for this position?
First, I believe my life experience qualifies me for this position because I'm accustomed to diversity. Realizing the sort of racial disparity that's in Lynn Haven, it will require diversity for me to lead a majority of citizens who have a different cultural background than I do. However, through life experience, I've been able to engage in various cultural contexts and be able to speak in ways in which we can both communicate and articulate what one another is saying so that we can properly conduct business. And so I believe my life experience leads to the cultural diversity that will be needed for this position. Also, as it relates to my professional experience as a pastor, I've been able to engage with the community as a community leader here in the local area. And so I've been able to develop networks and partnerships with various organizations so that we can all work together to strengthen our community. I also believe my education allows me to be a strategic planner as well as a communicator, organization and management. With my master's and doctorate degree, I've been challenged in ways in which I've had to implement those things in my current position. Also, my community service. I'm on the board of directors of Anchorage Children's Home. I'm also a police chaplain for the Panama City Police Department, a mentor at Mosley High School. I've even had a chance to coach soccer and softball and t-ball for my kids. So I believe that my experience as a pastor, community servant, community leader, as well as my life experience enables me to run for this position.
Thank you. Mr. Brown?
All right. I personally have a degree in finance from Auburn University. And sorry about that. I have a degree in finance from Auburn University, and a vast amount of experience in banking, working with a Fortune 500 company, and over 20 years of experience in various city and county governments, primarily in the financial area. And some of the responsibilities have included working with multi-million-dollar budgets, being responsible for allocating property tax dollars to municipalities and school districts, and working with various county and city elected officials at all levels. I've been back in Lynn Haven now for about 4 years. I've been active attending commission meetings, attending meetings of various boards. I do serve on the CRA advisory board as vice chairman, and I think those experiences would definitely qualify me for this position.
Thank you. Who has number 2?
We're going to rip this Band-Aid off. Ethics is a primary concern in all elections this year. Former city officials are facing legal consequences over mishandling city contracts, and there are ongoing investigations of corruption within government bodies. What steps do you support to ensure more transparency and accountability in city government?
As it relates to ethics, I believe we all have to have a common foundation of knowing that ethics is really doing the right thing when no one is looking. And so I remember being in college, in a freshman college history course, and everyone was passing around the answers to the final exam. And so someone walked out and they dropped it in front of my desk. And so I had to make a choice. The professor was out. Do I get those answers and make an A on the test, or do I take the test as it has presented to me? So I decided to take the test as it was presented to me, and I finished the test. It was 60 questions. I took the answers and I left out because I was the last student to get the answers. So I took the answers and walked out of the class. When I walked out, believe it or not, the answers only went to question number 55. And so the 5 questions that I needed were the ones that were not on the actual cheat sheet. And so I would have failed the course, possibly been expelled from school because I didn't do the right thing. And so I think it's important for us to do the right thing when no one is looking as it relates to ethics. In regards to how can we improve that, I believe the issue of ethics is not with the current administration, it's with the previous administration. So those who we have in place currently, our current city manager, I believe she's doing a great job of communication and making transparency available for any citizen that is interested in knowing what is happening with our government.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Would you repeat that?
Absolutely. Ethics is a primary concern in all elections this year. Former city officials are facing legal consequences over mishandling city contracts, and there are ongoing investigations of corruption within government bodies. What steps do you support to ensure more transparency and accountability in city government?
To echo some of the things that Mr. Nelson said in regard to ethics, I think most all of us have been brought up and we know right from wrong. I think a lot of the previous problems that have been prevalent in Lynn Haven are not there anymore. I think we have safeguards in place now with systems and the people that are in place to be more open and honest with taxpayers and citizens of Lynn Haven.
Thank you.
Okay. Who has question number 5?
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about number 3? Sorry. A little confused here. Were there any decisions that the council recently made with which you strongly disagreed? Please explain what you would have done differently.
Currently, as a citizen of Lynn Haven, after attending a few of the most recent city commission meetings, there have not been any decisions that I strongly disagree with personally. However, I do know there are citizens who have expressed disgruntlement with the changing of the time as it relates to the evening commission meeting. So it was at 5. They thought they were going to change it to 6 possibly, but it was moved to 4. So I know there's some citizens that are really disgruntled about that, as well as individuals have expressed their disagreement with moving forward in regards to updating the charter and the referendum with the referendum that's coming up on the ballot. So personally, I don't have any strong disagreement with the current decisions that have been made recently. However, there are citizens that I can say do have disagreement with what has happened recently in city commission meetings.
Mr. Brown?
I also have not had any major disagreements with recent decisions that the commission has made. I have had questions regarding some of the decisions they've made, but I've talked to various commissioners and the city manager about some of those things beforehand and was able to get my questions answered. I think for the most part, I really can't think of anything that has been a major disagreement. Like I say, we've had some questions about various issues, but they've been able to resolve those to my satisfaction.
Thank you. Number 4. Goodness gracious. All right, Mr. Nelson. Do you support the referendum to amend and update your Lynn Haven charter? Why or why not?
As a citizen who is voting on that referendum, it is something that I'm still currently thinking about, because citizens were the ones who presented the changes that they thought were needed to the referendum or to the charter. So we brought up the issue as citizens of Lynn Haven to the commission. And now that the commission has moved forward on it, now we're sort of pushing back against the forward movement that the commission has decided to make on the issue that we asked them to address. So I do understand the issue that as citizens that we have. So moving forward, whether this passes or not, I do think we probably will need a little more citizen input as it relates to the charter, so that we can get it up to date and make it current to what we're doing now within our city.
All right, thank you. Mr. Brown.
Yes, I will be supporting this amendment because I believe it's a good first step. I don't believe it's the total answer to charter problems that exist, but I think it's a good first step. Citizens have been asking for some changes, and some of the things that they have been asking for are included here. So like I say, I think it's a good first step. We'll have 2 years before the next election that we can make further changes if we need to, whether that's with a committee or group of citizens, whatever form that takes. But this is just the first step in a process. It's not a one-time solution that can never be changed again.
All right, thank you.
Now we're at number 5. I believe that was Mr. Brown. Yep. What should the city do about non-conforming properties within the city limits? How is code enforcement working, and what would you change?
I think with some recent changes that have been made with code enforcement, placing them now as a part of the police department, we've also adopted some ordinances recently which address some of the problems that we're having with absentee owners on rental properties who have not addressed those properties since Hurricane Michael. We've got a large number of properties that have not been fixed or taken care of since Hurricane Michael. And I know some people have insurance problems, and I understand all those things, but we do have policies in place now which will be stronger, give code enforcement more power to do things as far as proceeding against these properties, filing liens and whatever.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson, would you like the question again?
Yes, if you could repeat the question.
What should the city do about non-conforming properties within the city limits? How is code enforcement working, and what would you change?
As it relates to the non-conforming properties within the city limits,
Right.
I believe we need to, first of all, make an assertive effort to contact the owners of the properties to ask, why is their property non-conforming? Why is their property not repaired? Why is their property not in the process of being updated? It could be an insurance issue. It could be a finance issue. Some homeowners didn't have insurance on their homes because maybe they had paid their home off and they didn't have a mortgage that required insurance. And some homeowners, the repair for their home is more than what their insurance actually covers. So I personally know individuals who purchase a home for $198,000. Now it takes $300,000 to rebuild that same home, but their insurance doesn't cover $300,000. It only covers $200,000 or $205,000. So I believe before we really enforce what we can do with our code enforcement, that we would need to make an assertive effort to see why they're non-conforming. At that point, if they are not in communication with us, keeping us up to date on what they're doing to repair their home, then we should probably enforce what we can do through our ordinances with code enforcement to try to bring them to conformity.
Thank you. Number 6. All right, Mr. Brown. So this is along the same lines. Prior to Hurricane Michael, there were several affordable apartment complexes in your city. Almost none have been rebuilt, and the emphasis seems to be solely on single-family homes. What can or should the city do to encourage a better balance of housing in the city?
I don't believe this is a problem that the city can solve alone. I think it's going to take a collaborative approach between both the city, potential developers, builders, even lenders, other businesses, coming together to be able to come up with solutions for affordable housing. I don't think it's only a government problem, and it's going to take some creative thinking in order to do that, whether it be public-private partnerships or whatever. But it's going to have to be an approach by all the stakeholders.
All right, thank you. Mr. Nelson, same question.
Would you repeat the question again, please?
Yes. Prior to Hurricane Michael, there were several affordable apartment complexes in your city. Almost none have been rebuilt, and the emphasis seems to be solely on single-family homes. What can or should the city do to encourage a better balance of housing in the city?
As it relates to rebuilding workforce homes or homes for the workforce or affordable homes in our local area, the city does not build those properties. And so, as Mr. Brown has alluded, we do need to collaborate with developers, realtors, builders, contractors to see what can we do to build affordable housing in our area. I've met with the Department of our Zoning and Development and Land in our Department of Zoning and Development here for the city of Lynn Haven, and she's discussed possibly encouraging individuals to find parcels in which they can build affordable apartments. But that's also a land use issue, which would take collaboration from the city. So although we could find the developers to do this, we would also have to make sure there's cooperation from the city as it relates to land usage. So I think it's a very collaborative effort that will have to take place in order for us to build affordable housing in our local area.
Number 7. The 60-acre Lynn Haven Community Center sports complex has been an important feature of the community, and for many years was the focal point of community sporting activities. Since significant hurricane damage occurred, it has lain in ruins. What's the plan for this complex?
I'm glad you asked me that question, because I have been involved with youth sports for a long time, and that's something I think needs to really be a priority, restoring that sports complex. There is a plan in place. It's a multi-stage plan. The first stage is around rebuilding the ball fields. Then the second phase is the community center gymnasium building, and third is some other fields that are multi-use for such things as soccer, lacrosse, or football. So it's not something we're going to be able to rebuild overnight, but drawings have been done, and those, the way I understand it, will be going out for bid soon on the first phase to get that project moving.
Mr. Nelson?
The sports complex is a very critical component of our quality of life here in Lynn Haven. I've coached both of my children's ball teams at the sports complex. My daughter played softball and my son played t-ball. Had a little more fun coaching softball because it was hard keeping the t-ball children in their designated areas. And I actually still go jogging at the sports complex. And so I go out and I take a jog around the sports complex because it's easier for me to sort of map out how far a mile is when I go. And so I see it every single day, the devastation that is there. And I do ask, when are we going to build that back? After meeting with the city manager, she was able to show me the plans that we had for the sports complex, able to show us the the baseball fields that they're going to restore, the 2 gymnasiums that they're going to build. And one of the exciting parts about the ball fields is they're going to make them tournament eligible, so that we can also host baseball tournaments and other softball tournaments here, which would also help bring in a little revenue to the total area, not just to the Sports and Recreation Department, but also to our restaurants and hotels. And so I think that's a great idea. They're also going to expand the parking, and so there'll be more parking available around the entire complex, so that more individuals can come and be a part of what we're doing at the sports complex. So I'm excited about the plans that we have in place and look forward to seeing those in action.
All right, question number 8. All right, Mr. Nelson, how familiar are you with the budgeting process and city staffing? What budget problems do you see, and how would you address them?
As it relates to the budgeting process, I'm I guess as familiar as you can be with it within a short period of time. I have not. I just saw you put stop up. Okay. I was like, I just started.
No stop yet. Keep going, please.
So as it relates to the budgeting process, I am as familiar as you can be with it within a short period of time. Unlike the city manager and the deputy finance director, as well as the budget director, I don't work with it every single day. However, I have had a chance to sit down with the city manager, the deputy finance director, and the budget director to get a very clear picture of what the budget, our revenue, our expenses. So I have a pretty good understanding and grasp of our budget. As it relates to what can we do on improving our budget, after talking with the budget director, she's telling me they're streamlining as much as possible. We've had to not update our police equipment. We've had to not update some of our fire equipment. So they're doing a very streamlined process. So she's assured me that they are not just frivolously spending money, that they are very streamlining the process, and so that we can have confidence that what we're spending through our budget is what is actually needed. The challenges with the budget, though, is how do we increase revenue? We're a municipality, we're not a business, we're not individuals, and so as individuals, we can sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace. As business owners, we can sell more products, but as a city, our primary form of revenue is taxes and fees, which we don't want to raise. And so that's one of our challenges as it relates to the budget.
All right. Mr. Brown, would you like the question repeated?
Please.
All right. How familiar are you with the budgeting process and city staffing? What budget problems do you see, and how would you address them?
With my background in city and county government for over 20 years, I've dealt with both city and county multi-million-dollar budgets. The budget that we have here now, in looking at it myself, I believe it's relatively straightforward, easy to understand. I don't really have a problem with it, and that may be because I've got so much experience with that. I don't know, but we are constantly, I know the staff is constantly looking at the budget. As Mr. Nelson said, revenues are a big item, and we're very limited as a municipality on what we can do to raise revenues, like you said, either taxes or fees, and we really don't prefer to do that, but there are other options out there that will help us in funding projects such as grants, matching funds, and things like that we can utilize to offset some of that revenue burden.
Number 9. We know that citizen participation is essential to a healthy democracy. How would you best encourage residents' participation in the decision-making process?
I think one thing, and I've mentioned this in several meetings when this question has come up, right now we have a variety of boards and commissions in the city, which some require certain levels of expertise. We constantly are having problems finding volunteers to serve on those boards. I'm on the CRA advisory board, and we've been trying for months to get people to serve on that board. various city departments have put out appeals on social media recently asking for volunteers to come help with various projects, and very few show up. I'm not sure exactly what the answer is to get more volunteerism, but I know it's a great way to get people involved if we can get them to start volunteering. Certainly open to any suggestions anybody might have as to how we can recruit more volunteers.
Mr. Nelson? Would you
Yes.
like me to repeat the question?
Yes, would you repeat the question, please?
We know that citizen participation is essential to a healthy democracy. What would your role be to encourage residents' participation in the decision-making process?
First, I would encourage residents to attend the various meetings and forums that are already in place before developing new ones. For example, our city manager has a monthly table talk where you can come as a citizen and you can ask the various questions. She gives updates on what's happening in the city. And so myself and Mr. Joe Brown were able to attend one of those, and it was very limited in attendance by our citizens. So we have many citizens who are saying they want more engagement and more involvement. They want to speak with the city manager and other department heads, but when the opportunities are available, we have to make sure that our citizens attend those events so that they can have their voices heard. Also, I would suggest that we have maybe at least quarterly meetings. For example, meet with the mayor, where you could come and speak with me and talk with me about whatever issues that you might have. Call your commissioner. All of our commissioners have telephone numbers in which you can reach them, call them, email them, attend the workshops and city commission meetings as they're available. So as workshops are made available, attend those workshops, attend the city commission meetings. For example, we had a stormwater workshop, and it was not overflowing with a lot of citizens from our community. But however, we hear a lot of complaints about the stormwater projects and how they're not being funded properly. Also, I would say volunteer for the various boards, as Mr. Brown has alluded to. There are various citizen boards in which you can volunteer. And lastly, I would say contact city staff. As you asked in a previous question, I have had the opportunity to meet with most of the department heads, and they are all open and ready for citizens to contact them, and sometimes are disappointed when citizens go to the city commission first before actually contacting them about a particular issue.
All right, thank you. So we are on to question number 10, and we're going to go ahead for time, and we're going to have this be the last question, and then you guys will get your 60 seconds, all right? So number 10? All right. So going to, you started to bring up the stormwater, which is a very important thing. What changes to Lynn Haven stormwater management program do you believe should be made to improve your stormwater control, and who should pay for it? And second part of this is, what are your city's most pressing infrastructure needs? Because they kind of go together, stormwater and infrastructure, right? All right, Mr. Nelson?
Okay. As it relates to making changes to our current project plan after meeting with Mr. Bobby Baker and Mr. Chris Lightfoot, our department heads for Public Works, I believe that they have a great plan in place, as it has been alluded to earlier, I believe by Mr. Brian Dick and Mr. Jamie Wark, that they have a great plan in place. And I think Mr. Brian Gray also alluded to it. I mean, all of us have talked about the stormwater issue. And so they have a great outline in place. However, it's underfunded. And so that has been the real issue, is not having the funding for it. What I do commend them for is that for the projects that require less funding, they have actually completed many of those projects in-house. And so I do like the fact that they're not waiting on federal funds to come in before actually tackling some of our stormwater issues. And so many of those projects have been able to be completed in-house. I think one of the things we can do to change it is just make it more available for the citizens online, so that citizens can keep up with what projects have started, what projects have been completed, what projects are in process, what projects are on the way, what projects are waiting on funding, so that we can all keep track of it. As it relates to the most pressing needs in regards to our infrastructure, I think it's sort of prioritized in that project. We recently had a stormwater study that allowed us to see what issues or what areas needed to be prioritized. And I think communicating that with the citizens, helping them understand that maybe your street is not on the priority list. Not that it's not an issue, but it's probably not one of the priorities that we have for the city.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Brown, repeating the question, what changes to Lynn Haven's stormwater management program do you believe should be made to improve your stormwater control, and who should pay for it? And what are the city's most pressing infrastructure needs?
As several others have mentioned, I think we've all seen the current stormwater plan that Mr. Lightfoot is in the process of developing and working through. If you look at the city's webpage, social media, they are posting almost weekly projects that have been completed, whether it's cleaning out ditches, repairing pipe, those types of things that are on an ongoing basis. The plan itself, I've seen it like everyone else has, and it is detailed into what they're planning to do, what has already been completed, what is in the works, if they're waiting on funding or whatever. We have been able to do a lot of that in-house. We just bought a new piece of equipment that allows us to clean out drains and ditches and so forth. Stormwater, as well as water and sewer, really all of that infrastructure is vitally important, and we've got to tackle all of it. It's not a problem that just started last week. It's been around for a long time, and it's not something that has an easy, quick fix, but progress is being made.
Well, I want to thank you guys this evening. So we're at the 60-second mark, and we'll start alphabetically with you, Mr. Brown.
Well, although we've been through a lot in the last 2 years with a Cat 5 hurricane and a pandemic and all of the investigations of public corruption, the city is continuing to move forward and has a very bright future. We have those issues to deal with. The recovery and rebuild of the city, that's a priority for a lot of the people that I've been talking to. They want their city looking good again, buildings rebuilt, and that type of thing. But we've also got to address these other issues we've been talking about tonight as far as stormwater, infrastructure, quality of life type issues with parks and libraries and those type of things, good neighborhoods, the things that have been bringing people to Lynn Haven, new jobs and everything. I believe with the experience and leadership skills that I've had in city and county government over the last 20 plus years, I am definitely qualified to lead the city going forward.
All right, thank you. Mr. Nelson.
I'm running for mayor of Lynn Haven because I care about our community. My wife and I are small business owners here in the community, Coastal Massage and Wellness Clinic, as well as my children attend school here in this community. My son is a third grader at Bay Haven, and my daughter will be a freshman at Mosley High School on next year. And so I would like to be able to influence the future of our community so that my children can raise their children in this community. Like many of you that are grandparents, I don't want to have to travel far to see my grandchildren. Also, as it relates to being a candidate for mayor of Lynn Haven, my priorities are to restore public trust, to prepare for our future through economic development and repair of infrastructure, as well as continue to enhance our quality of life and safety. We have one of the best fire departments and police departments in the state, not just in this area, but in the state. We are in the top 10 for best cities to live in within this area. And so I humbly ask for your vote on or before April 20th as mayor of Lynn Haven.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. We appreciate you all having been here with us this evening and for allowing our candidates to present themselves. Before we let you go, very quickly, we would just want to give a quick commercial for our League of Women Voters. We are an organization that is working to empower voters and defend democracy. We are a non-partisan organization, but we are political. Politics is about power, and it's about who has it, what they do with it, how it shifts, and how we respond to that. And so in these times recently, we know there's a lot of changes going on. Here in America, we seem to be having a bit of a civic kind of crisis. And so there is an ongoing division that we are looking to try to fill. But our job as League of Women Voters is to deal with issues that are important to women, not just women, but there are issues that are also important to the general community, to the electorate, to children. And as you can see from our slide, education is right up there as one of our issues, along with fighting voter suppression, health care, money in politics, environment, natural resources, immigration, gun safety, redistricting. And as you may well imagine, those things may shift from time to time in terms of their priorities, based on what is actually going on right at the time. Whether it's in our community here or if it's in the larger community, we do know that there are a number of divisions, and the League of Women Voters would like to let you know this evening that we are in fact supporting the school levy. We say yes to education. As a women's organization that's been around for 100 years, our issues have to do with things that disproportionately impact women and children. And so we say yes to the school district levy because it is about the teachers. And as a profession here, the education sector is a major part, not just of our community, but of our economy. And we believe that property taxes related that are increased for specific purposes make a statement about a community's values. And while we understand that our education system is a complicated thing, I don't know how many of you are familiar with the education system, but it does also reflect that we elect people to run our system. We elect our county superintendent, and we elect school board members. And we have just recently elected someone to head the district for the 4th time. And so our elections and our voting is supposed to reflect what we believe about the integrity of the people that we put into office. And while there are a lot of complications to the budgeting and the different details of how we fund education, the local tax levy is a direct statement by this community of what we believe about our teachers. And it's a direct reflection of our support for salaries. Salaries, security, and safety, along with mental health, is something that we believe should not be just a one-time thing. It should not be just a rescue. It should not be just a bonus. It should be a permanent increase. We believe that the education profession is one of the most undervalued in our society, but we also believe that education is one of the most important foundations of our infrastructure. So the League of Women Voters, as a nonpartisan organization that supports education and supports women's issues and supports children, would like to ask you to please support the tax levy. There certainly are structural things that people need to be accountable for, and we want all of our elected officials and all of our public systems to be transparent. And we believe that there's a lot of information and a lot of access to what does go on in the Nelson Building. And so we want you all to please consider what your support of that will do for our community, and how that shows our respect for our education community here as well. So we again appreciate you all coming out. We would ask you to join us in our mission. We are one of hundreds of chapters around the country of an organization that's been around for over 100 years. And our positions are researched, and we spend a lot of time and effort to make sure that we're reflecting the values of the people that are most in need of support. So we want more inclusion in our democracy. We think that's what makes it work well. And we would ask that you all continue to ask all your friends, neighbors, and supporters to vote. And every election is important. As the gentlemen all did indicate, our participation rates from municipal elections are very low. But we also know that it's the local action that has the most impact on citizens' day-to-day lives. And we want people to pay attention to what's going on in their local communities, to be able to show up down at City Hall, and to know that the elected officials will listen and that we can have an ongoing dialogue in our communities, because we do have some issues and we have some bridges that we'd like to divide. Some divides that we would like to bridge. And so along those lines, we would like to invite you to come to a forum that we have more than just candidates forums. We have issues forums, and we are planning one this summer. On June 24th, we are having a forum at Gulf Coast State University, which is one of our local partners. We have a number of partners and allies that we work with, and we are having a forum there that is a continuation of a forum we had a year ago called A House Divided. Our divisions in our civic life are unsustainable. There are issues with huge divides, and we cannot address problems without acknowledging them, without defining them, and without agreeing that we want to work together to solve problems. A racial reconciliation forum is what it will be focused on, but we also understand that there are a lot of there's a lot of intersectionality between differences that have to do not just with race and gender or gender identity or ethnicity or religion, but that we as a community have to decide that we are willing to address some issues, and we will do it together, and we will do it respectfully. So hopefully you all will be in tune with the League of Women Voters. Please log on to our Facebook and or check us out on Facebook, and please keep in touch with us. We welcome you to join us. We've got our membership director back there that greeted you at the door, Miss Wendy Bryant. We would love to get your memberships. We have men in our organization, and our numbers are, yes, our secretary here is Earl, our timekeeper. And can I have all of our league members that are in the room at this time stand up? We had a few other people that were here, and so we've got them spread around the edge. So yes, we appreciate you all for supporting our efforts. We'll have another forum this Thursday in Parker for those that know or are interested in what's going on in Parker. And we look forward to being in touch with all of you. Thank you so much again, and we appreciate you. Good night.